Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg. I am your host for Yoga Birth Babies. And today we are talking about tantrums. If you are a parent, if you've ever seen a parent, if you know of a parent, you know that kids have tantrums. I'm sure you've seen it, you've heard it, you've watched it on TV, you've seen it in the middle of Dwayne Reed. Tantrums. So, full disclosure, I still deal with tantrums with my kids. They are not toddlers, but they still have tantrums. I know, probably makes me a bad parent, but I digress. So I wanted to get to the bottom of this, and I wanted to look at how we can deal with tantrums, especially during this time of COVID where we're really together a lot. Tantrums can be even bigger and more confusing. So I reached out to Deena and Kristen of Big Little Feelings. So Kristen Gallant is a mom of 2 toddlers and a parent coach. And Deena Margolin is a licensed marriage and family therapist and is a child therapist and mom-to-be. And together, they created Big Little Feelings. Instead of vague parenting theories, they bring real tips for real toddler problems. Everything from tantrums, which we're going to talk about, to bedtime battles, which we still talk about, power struggles, and sibling challenges, so you can calm the chaos in your home and get back to enjoying your family and your life. So we are talking tantrums. I think you'll really, really get a lot out of it. I know I did. Before we have that conversation, just a reminder, please check us out online for our prenatal yoga classes. And if you do come from hearing the podcast into one of our online classes, let me know this is how we found each other. I would love to say hi and welcome you to our amazing community. So we have those 7 days a week. We've got the childbirth education class. We've got everything that happens at PYC in the studio, now online. Now, as many of you know, the studio is still closed. I can't believe that. So to help keep things chugging along, I have 2 different donations going on. If you're able to, please feel free to pop over to our website and you can leave a donation for the studio continuing. It definitely helps. But also we have created a new scholarship, BIPOC, a Black Indigenous People of Color Scholarship for our teacher training. We really want to make sure that underserved populations get served, and we want to broaden that possibility. So we have a wonderful scholarship open for that. So please feel free to check that out. As I mentioned, the teacher training, we're already full for the early fall, but we opened up a late fall. Jump into that. And then last thing for our teacher friends, if a full teacher training is just too much commitment, because it is a big training, I actually just added about 2 hours more work of homework assignments because I'm constantly wanting to keep this growing. If you don't want to jump into the full thing, I've got Who's Afraid of the Pregnant Yogi and Teaching the Postnatal Student. They're self-guided online courses for yoga teachers or just interested yoga practitioners that are pregnant. And then lastly, I just want to thank everyone that has left a rating and review on our podcast. For our podcast on wherever Apple Podcasts where you listen, Spotify, all the different places. Thank you so much for leaving those rating and reviews. Okay, I talked a lot. We're going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the world of calming down tantrums.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, Deena. Hi, Kristen. How are you today?
Hi. We're doing well.
Oh, good. I know the 3 phone call the 3 line phone calls can often be like, who's speaking next? But you guys, I know, are probably quite in sync with each other. And that's why, just take it as it comes. All right. So I know about your work because I've been following you on social media, and then I took a deep dive into what you do. And I'm really, really excited to speak with you guys. So if you can tell me a little bit about yourselves and how you got started working together and how you formed Big Little Feelings.
Definitely. So I'll start. I'm Deena. I'm a child therapist. Well, technically a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I specialize in really young children and toddlers. I'm also a parent coach here in Los Angeles. We started Big Little Feelings really because I just knew as a therapist there was a much better way to help families learn tools early and really create something practical for them. So that was kind of behind it. And I'm 7 months pregnant right now.
I know, it's so great. When I found that out, I was like, yay, I love pregnant people.
Yay. She's so pregnant. She's so cute. And I'm Kristen. I am a mom of 2 toddlers. So I have a 3.5-year-old and I have an 18-month-old. So she's kind of just entering this toddler phase. And when Deena, she's been a child therapist. I've known her for 18 years. We went to high school together. And once I started having kids, I just couldn't find anything that was practical out there, like nothing. So I'm like an information person. I read every single book, just every research. I needed to know the right thing to do from the start. And then once every day came and, she's peeing on the floor or she's begging for a cookie, but it's not time for a cookie, or just all those everyday little tiny things. I'm like, God, where is the book on this? No one is telling me how to handle this. So I found myself just texting her all day long, and so we kind of had this idea, like how can we merge this bigger concept of what we want to do as parents overall to raise resilient kids and use all of Deena as a child therapy, do it really the right way, but also help you out in those every single day tricky moments that you have no idea what to say or do.
That's absolutely perfect because as my kids are a little older, I have a 6-year-old and my son just turned 9 2 days ago, but we still deal with tantrums. And so when I found your work, even though I know it's meant really for younger kids, I was jumping into it and I was trying to take that. So I'm really excited to talk about tantrums and dealing with all of their feelings. So I know you have a whole course, so I don't want to, pull too much from that and kind of give away all your secrets. But I was wondering if you can give me a few highlights as to how to handle tantrums because I'm not good at them.
First of all, you are. You're giving yourself not a lot of credit. You're great, okay? This is hard stuff. So you know what? You're doing great. Just know that.
All right.
No matter what you're doing, it's great. So really in the moment of the tantrum, there's really the 2 biggest things that we always teach. The first is accepting and acknowledging their feelings. And that is, it's so hard as a parent. You see that out there and you've heard it before maybe, and it's just so hard because your kid is kind of screaming in your face or a purple crayon broken half, or maybe it's just they want a purple crayon, so you give them a purple crayon. And so it's really difficult to detach from that situation and to be really empathetic, right? But it truly, in the moment, is actually the best way to go because it's kind of like when we're adults and we have a really bad day and we're just upset. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. And somebody turns to you and your partner, for example, turns to you and is like, what's the big deal? Like nothing even happened. What is wrong? It just does it. And you're probably going to have a bigger explosion. You're probably going to freak out at them. It just does it. And that's the same thing with our kids and our toddlers. It can go a really long way to just say, I see that you're upset. That crayon breaking makes you feel really sad. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel how you feel. And just in that one step, you're kind of laying the foundation big term globally that eventually they'll be able to acknowledge and accept their own feelings. And then it also just in the moment truly can really shorten that tantrum. You'd be surprised just to having them feel seen and valued.
What about if the tantrum triggers you as a parent? Like my son has done stuff that makes me crazy. And I hope I'm not the only one that gets triggered by their own kids' tantrums.
You're not. You're not. So it's the reason it's really triggering, first of all, is just as human beings, just the noise alone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you do also sometimes, of course, it's hard to not take it personally. You slaved away on the dinner and they're throwing the dinner, but even just the bombarding of sounds, it's so difficult in the moment. So you are not alone there. And honestly, that's kind of why we on our page, if you look at it, it's mostly what we call script, right? And that's not because we want to tell you what to do and you can only do one thing and you should only do that. That's not actually what it's for. What it's for is, even in the moment, I have my script, because I kind of, when I go into rage blackout mode, then we're negotiating, I'm getting heightened, we're all over the place. And so I like to have a game plan in advance where, okay, when they throw the food, this is what I say. And I mantra it over and over. And I say, I hear that you want to do this. I can't let you. I hear that you want to do this. I can't let you. Over and over and over. It really helps to have a plan going into it.
Yeah, exactly. Because tantrums are overwhelming for our nervous systems. They're loud. They feel uncertain and unpredictable. It's chaotic. And all of that is just a recipe for our nervous system to shift into kind of like survival mode, where we're either really aggressive and upset and in fight mode, or we're in that flight mode of like, oh my goodness, I just need this to end, or freeze mode where we end up doing nothing because we're so overwhelmed by it. So if that's you, that's healthy. That's just part of being human. And like Kristen said, having a plan can make it a little bit easier in those moments.
Yeah, I find them just exhausting. They're just exhausting.
They really are, you know? And that's why, again, like, tantrums are really healthy. They're going to happen. It's going to happen with your toddler. But I will say that when you accept and acknowledge feelings, and then you add in the boundary piece, which is so super important too, it really does over time lessen those tantrums. And so while we'll never really let them go away entirely, if you get through the day and you only have one tantrum or half a tantrum or less intense tantrum, you're going to feel a little less exhausted. You'll feel a little better. And so that's what we're here to do. We're here to help and really lower the intensity and frequency of them.
Well, can we talk about that boundary piece? Because I feel like, that is really, I have a hard time with that. Like I set the boundary, and then there's just that grading. And then I move the boundary a bit because I'm like, oh my God. And I know I'm like, don't give up totally, because as soon as you drop the boundary, it's teaching them I'm going to throw a tantrum and I get what I want. But at what point is it I'm more sticking my heel in the mud and I'm like, no. And then sometimes I step back. I'm like, well, it's not that bad what he's asking for. Like, where's that compromise? Because sometimes I just say no out of instinct. Maybe it's not a good instinct. So can you talk about the boundary and where it's okay to move it and when it's absolutely not?
Yeah. So I think it's so much better, I will say better, if you can go into things knowing where the boundary is, right? Because like you're saying, sometimes you just instinctually say no, and then you're like, oh, wait, that's going to happen. It's real life. But for the most part, if you can kind of have a game plan of like, okay, this is what I'm okay with, this is what I'm not okay with, even something simple like a TV show on the iPad or something.
Oh my God, that is what it is. It's the
I knew it. I can see you. We're here to help. we got you. It's always
the iPad. I curse the iPad. I curse Netflix. Actually, YouTube. It's all. Oh my God.
Okay.
See, this is why I wanted to reach out to you.
I got you. I can see you. That's so funny because so many people on our page literally say that. They're like, "Are you looking in my house right now?" Like, yep. So the iPad example is a great example. That actually makes this explanation much easier. Really, almost every single time you go into an iPad or a show situation, you as a parent should know how many episodes you're okay with, and you should stick with that. It shouldn't necessarily be, I would like to have one, but if he's really exhausted or this or that, then I'll be okay with two. It's too confusing for them. It's so inconsistent. And then, like you just said, we're going to scream and scream and scream or have the tantrum until we get to the next episode. So that is in advance. If you're okay with 3 episodes, do 3 episodes. If you're okay with 2 episodes, do 2 episodes. Whatever it is that you're about to do, know in your mind. And what's super important too is you tell them in advance too. That's a little thing called prep. And so that's so important to them. In advance, we make eye contact before the iPad is even open, saying, we're going to watch one Daniel Tiger, whatever the show may be, your kids are older. And after Daniel Tiger, we're all done. And then throughout it, we're, maybe giving reminders. Okay, after this one, we're all done. And then when it's all done, we hold that boundary. That's for sure. And the more you do that in that moment, even though you think, well, one more show is not really a big deal, it's kind of a big deal because you're going to get more tantrums and more tantrums and more tantrums and more tantrums. It's really a long-term game there.
Yeah.
And it also kind of dilutes our credibility as parents too, because then they're not exactly sure when we say something, does it actually mean it? Does mom mean it? Or is it going to change? Right. So we want that to be super consistent.
Yeah, no, these are solid, and I just need to hold on to them more. Now, I was looking through a lot of your material, and you talked about something, the yes-no sandwich, because I tend to be more of a maybe. Like, can I have that? I'm like, maybe. And that just bides me a little time. Can you explain your yes-no sandwich?
Yeah, so this is the idea that sometimes as parents, we are going to say no. It's super necessary. It's healthy. No, you can't jump off the bookshelf. No, you can't eat the cat food.
Oh, my favorite is my son said, I'm going to tape Sage, that's his sister, my daughter, to the wall. I'm like, what? No, you cannot tape her to the wall.
Like a maybe.
Yeah. And so the yes-no sandwich is all about how we say no, because just like us as adults, we don't like hearing no, and same for your toddler. So if we can do it in a way that really helps them move through the feelings and potentially even avoid a meltdown, we'll just kind of sail more smoothly through it. Excuse me. So this is the idea that, say your toddler wants to go to the park right now, right? That's in their mind. They really want to go. But you as the adult, you know your day and you don't have time to go right now. So you start with a yes, which is the park is so fun. And then a subtle no gets sandwiched in. Right now it's lunchtime. And then we end with another yes. We can go to the park after lunch. So we're still hearing them. We're acknowledging it. We're holding a boundary because it's lunchtime and we're not going now. But we're also kind of shifting to this yes, where they feel excited and they feel like you're collaborating with them and really hearing them.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so in my head, as I heard you, I know when I go to pick my kids up from camp, they're going to want ice cream. So I'm formulating it. Yes, ice cream's really great. No, you can't have it right now, but yes, you can have it after dinner. Is that
it? Exactly. Nailed it. Yes. Yeah. And that, of course, it might not work 100% of the time, right? Especially after camp, they're exhausted, when kids are hungry, things like that. But if it can help, I would say it helps so much of the time. It's such a big percentage. Think about how often we just say no. And in a toddler's mind, they have no concept of what's next, right? Or thinking like in their mind, you just told them they're not going to have ice cream forever, right? And that's why they're in a puddle on the ground, because that's what they're hearing. And so by just simply shifting to, we will have ice cream, even if it's the next day, we'll have ice cream tomorrow, we will have it after nap, then they can look forward to that. They know it's coming again.
So is maybe a bad way, or should parents be more specific? Because I use maybe a lot.
Yeah. More specific is better. Kids really feel safer when they know that you are kind of, I don't want to say in charge, because that's not what we're about. We're not about being in charge or domineering by any means, but kids feel safer within this boundary zone where they know that you're making good choices for them, that you're confident and you're leading the home. So maybe it might be a little bit like too loosey, a little bit kind of unsafe feeling in that zone of, I don't know when this is going to happen. Is it going to happen? Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't happen.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. And finding kind of like the balance between calm, confident energy and tone, like that can go a long way when it comes to our little ones.
All right, you're pushing my boundaries, but it's good. It's really good. All right, I want to talk about tantrums more, and I want to talk about how to stop them before they even start. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's not even get that tantrum off the ground. We'll be right back.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This podcast is sponsored by Skylight Calendar. Let's be real. Running a household can be exhausting and chaotic. And finding the perfect Mother's Day gift, it's not exactly a no-brainer. Until now. The Skylight Calendar is the best way to organize the family and give everyone, especially mom, some peace of mind to enjoy the things that matter most. The Skylight Calendar is a smart, touchscreen calendar that keeps track of and manages the chores, dinner planning, groceries, and to-dos for the whole family. The Skylight Calendar automatically syncs each family member's digital calendars and displays them all together on one color-coded touchscreen. It even doubles as a digital picture frame, so you can finally share all those special moments that are just sitting on your phone. As a limited-time offer for our listeners, get 15% off your purchase of a Skylight Calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/easy. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/easy. Get 15% off your Mother's Day purchase now at skylightcal.com/easy.
Okay, we're back. So I'm pretty sure all parents want to know some tips to stop the tantrum before it even starts.
Yes. So our course has a whole section on how to prevent the tantrum, because that's what we all want, right? Are those tips and those tricks. And like we said, if your kid is starving, if they didn't sleep at all last night, I mean, we kind of need to buckle in and just know it's going to be a tough day. But otherwise, run through these tricks, because I'm telling you, they can really work with your toddler rather than against your toddler. So one of the big BLF favorites is the timer. I mean, the timer is just magical. So when you're, let's say, at the playground, that's a big one where your kid's excited and they're playing and they don't want to leave. And this is any transition. So it could be bedtime. They're playing, they don't want to go to bedtime. All those kinds of transitions. So you want to prep them in 5 minutes. We're going to leave. We're going to push the timer, and then we'll go home and we will blah, blah, blah. You really want to walk them through exactly what is going to happen step by step. So then you let them push the button on the timer. We like to just use the iPhone because kids love iPhones, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe they do use it, maybe they don't use it. My kids don't use it, so it's kind of novel to them to be like, ooh, yay, I get to push a timer. And that little piece, it's so subtle, but you're giving them a little bit of power, a little bit of confidence in themselves to be like, I'm choosing this. I'm making this happen. Mm. So they push the timer. And then when the timer goes off, it's kind of the craziest thing, because you see this toddler be like, I'm in charge here. Okay, guys, everybody, it's time to go. Like, did you all hear the timer? Time to wrap this up. I'm not kidding. We get that feedback all the time where they're like, my girl was like, everybody get upstairs. It's time for bed. We're going. Did you hear the timer? It puts them in charge while you, the parent, are actually the one in charge deciding the big things. They feel like they're in charge with this little timer trick.
That's a great trick. Now, I do have a question. You've talked about transitions, and I know that's hard for so many kids. Can you explain why is it so hard for so many, not just kids, but people transitioning?
Transitions are really hard for all of us, and especially our toddlers, because largely how their brains are developed right now. You can think of some of the really key areas in their frontal cortex specifically. They're still super under development. So those are the areas that really help them understand like how to think and how to control their body and how to regulate feelings. So when something feels upsetting, how to navigate it in a healthy way. So that's a big part of it. But also their concept of time is just completely different from ours. Like, we always love to joke how, they'll say yesterday is Christmas and today and tomorrow is their birthday and they don't have to go potty because they went 2 days ago. Their concept of time is just completely skewed to some degree. And that's why they need lots and lots of prep, like Kristen was saying, to help them navigate those transitions. But also just a very human thing, again, related to their brain development, going from something that feels really fun to them to something that seems less fun. It's just
like going to bed.
Yeah. It's just hard.
No, that makes sense. So let's get back to the tantrum. So we didn't quite get the tantrum under control and it's starting to escalate. Do you have some tips to de-escalate the tantrum?
Yeah. So thing number one is definitely enter the situation as best you can. And I stress that part, do your best with a cool, confident energy and tone, because a big reaction can bring more chaos to the chaos. And in like the opposite of that, your calm can be contagious. And so we really want to come in just with that confident vibe that lets them know that we've got them, we can handle all their big feelings, we've got a plan, we're in control with them. So next, you're going to accept and acknowledge the feelings. It might sound like, I hear you really don't want to leave grandma's house right now. It looks like you're feeling angry and sad. And you'll okay the feeling too. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel angry and sad. You're going to miss grandma. That makes sense. Hold the boundary next, which is it's time to head home and we'll see grandma again soon. And then a little trick we call shift to the yes, which is what should we play when we get home? Give them a little bit of power to make it feel like they get to collaborate here. And it's not just you telling them what to do. So that's definitely a good framework to keep in mind, is accept and acknowledge, okay, the feeling, hold the boundary, and shift to the yes.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try the shift to the yes. I've been doing I hear you're upset. I get that. But I don't do the shift to the yes. What about if they're kind of flailing? Does it help to hold them? Like I remember, I don't remember where I heard this, like a weighted blanket's really helpful for some kids. It would be like a bear hug, or is that going to feel too suffocating to them? Or is it per kid?
It's per kid for sure, because some kids really don't like being touched when they're upset.
Okay.
And actually, this is super important to note that mid-tantrum is not the time to teach anything. So we don't want to go over kind of like logic and reasoning and why they should or shouldn't feel a certain way or teach a lesson, because their brains cannot take anything in that moment. In fact, all humans, when we are in a super emotional state, we can't really think that well. So same with our kids. Think of it in those flailing moments. We're just containing, and safety will be a priority. So if they're, I don't know, some kids, especially younger ones, when they're upset, might kind of knock their head on the ground or something like that. You're going to gently keep them safe. I'm going to help you stay safe now. And you would just kind of slide your hand in to help them. Some kids do like being hugged in that moment, or their arms being held down just very gently, not in a constricting way. So definitely tune into your kid and notice how their body reacts, because each body is different.
And that makes sense. I had a friend describe it like she thinks her son's brain is like a mosh pit during a tantrum. She's like, I try to talk, and she's like, and I could just like look in his eyes, and there's this little crazy. It's a little crazy going on. It's like a little mosh pit. And I'm like, that's like the best way to describe that. There's just a lot going on in there.
Exactly.
It makes sense. Yeah. And so in that moment, you're just going to be with them. You're going to think of it as just containing that big energy. And then later, when they're calmer, you can go back and really talk about what they were feeling, which helps them build emotional skills. If you go back and name the feelings with them so that they build that inside voice, and then start to think about, okay, well, next time you feel that way, what can we do? How can we let it out safely? How can you let me know that you need help? And start to identify those tools. And over time, when you do this consistently, they start to grow those tools themselves and be able to use them on their own.
At what age are they able to, I guess, label their feelings, or is that again per child?
It's per child, I would say. And at the same time, the more you expose them to feelings talk, and the more you normalize all the feelings, angry and sad and happy, and read books about it, it becomes more familiar to them. So it's both. It depends on the child. And at the same time, we want to expose them to feelings so that they do get that language and they do grasp the concepts.
And that same thing, that same thing goes for coping skills, by the way, where it's like you would think a lot of parents think that they're too little and they can't understand it. And same with kind of the feelings thing where it's like, she's not getting it. Like, she's really not getting it. She's only 2. I'm saying it, but like, she's dead behind the eyes, you know what I mean? Or whatever. It's just, it's not going in. But then suddenly they start to turn a corner and they understand more than you would think that they do. And so, I mean, for example, my daughter, she just turned 3.5, and we've obviously been doing this since birth. So it's like, you know, we're going. But at 3.5, she'll sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but I'd say like half the time, or now it's even more than half the time, something will make her really mad and she'll go, Mom, I'm feeling really mad. I'm going to go do my angry chalk right now. And she'll go like ham on the chalkboard in a really angry way. And then that's instead of having that tantrum. And that's, I mean, pretty early. I would say 3.5 is pretty early, but if you've been doing it over and over and over and identifying those feelings with then teaching coping skills, it can come much earlier.
Exactly. Think of it almost as like planting seeds in a garden. It's going to take some time to actually see something sprout.
There's a book, I bet you guys have heard of it. It's called The Feelings Book by Todd Parr. Have you seen any of his books? They're little board books, and they have different ones. I love them. And it's like, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel angry. And he also has ones about like my hair looks good and a peace book. But if you haven't seen that, I think you guys would really enjoy it, because we started reading it to our kids super young, and it talks about all the different feelings. Sometimes I feel like staying in bed. Sometimes I feel like staying in the bathtub all day. And it just helps identify the variety of feelings. All right. So I'm feeling like I did something right. All right. So
you did.
You did. In my office.
All right. So does it help to understand why kids are having a tantrum? Because like you mentioned the purple crayon earlier, like my kids literally have tantrums over stuff that seems totally wackadoo. And I don't want to tell them like that's crazy talk, but that I just like, I don't understand what the problem's about. Is it just to acknowledge it's not how it's about control, like they lost control of something, or it's not how they envisioned it to be?
Yeah. So a tantrum can really come from anything, right? And so that's why it doesn't really do anyone any good, you or the kid, to kind of agonize over, but you ripped the paper in half. You're the one who ripped it in half. What do you mean? Or you asked me for the banana. It's about the banana. You know, we hear things like that all the time. And then
you do live in my head, right?
Oh yeah. I can see you. Is that your kid in the background doing that? So we sometimes get these really long messages about like, you know, this tantrum or that tantrum, and then we'll talk back and forth. And then maybe 3 paragraphs in or a couple of minutes in, they'll be like, oh, and we had a new baby 3 months ago. And we go, oh, bingo, right? And it doesn't always have to be new baby, right? It could be anything. I don't know, a global pandemic, right? So right now, maybe they're crying about the purple crayon, but what they're really perhaps letting out is being home all day, not going to school, yes, going to school, anything at all. You know, I mean, especially for toddlers, let alone even adults, that's the case. But that's why we don't really agonize over what they're upset in that moment. But it might be helpful as a parent to step back and think, okay, has anything else happened? Any big changes? Are we potty training? Did we move his big kid bed? Any kind of changes that we could talk about one-on-one later that might help mitigate some of the tantrums and feelings that are coming up.
Exactly. Yeah, I understand, like, if there's anxiety, because literally the banana, I've had that, like, but you asked for it. Here it is. What?
Yeah.
All right, so
banana.
It's all about the banana.
Every time. It's always the banana. Because you just peel it, right? So it's like you peeled it or they peeled it.
I peeled it, then it got too mushy at the top because I peeled it, but you asked for it. So,
and then it breaks in half. They want the big banana, not the little banana.
So we as parents shouldn't focus on what they're saying necessarily, but look behind, like, oh, they had a change in their schedule, or they went to camp for the first time, or they're not in school, or whatever. So as a parent, maybe step back and look at the bigger picture is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Stress and change will definitely impact it, as well as being overtired or hungry or not feeling well. We can expect more tantrums and meltdowns because they're just kind of like out of energy to cope anyways. And then going back to their brain development, we can just anticipate this to happen because those really key areas just haven't wired together yet. So it's hard for them to access their, healthier or not healthier, but just older kid tools of being able to manage emotions or communicate for that matter, because their language areas are still under development too.
That makes total sense.
Toddlers especially, but even, just through childhood, but definitely in toddlerhood, they actually really need to get those, like a feeling, just a release. Like they need to release it. So particularly in those homes where we see parents being like, you're fine, or stop crying, or, perhaps even sending to a timeout for having tantrums, you're going to see a really unrelated big explosion tantrums. You're just going to see them happen more and more and more. So the more we can just kind of accept that this tantrum is happening over the purple crayon and just let them have it. Let them just have that release.
It's very cathartic, I can imagine, yeah.
It is, yeah. Picture it as an adult. I mean, I had a healthy release last night. We all do it. I did.
I totally can relate to that. But what would you say to the parent who constantly feels like they're getting the glares and the head shakes and the whispers about like that child, the one who's just a handful?
Oh, gosh. Do you allow swearing on this? I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. This is a peaceful yoga podcast. I swear I do yoga too. What I mean by that is, that should kind of be our reaction, which is like, if someone really is judging or looking at you in that way, we're not the fondest of that kind of a person, right? And I think sometimes too, parents think people are looking and judging at them, and they're probably not, by the way. I think that when there's a loud child screaming on the ground, people do tend to look, because where there is fire or smoke or fire, we look, right? So most of the time I would say that people are probably not looking and judging. And the ones that are, I just need you to know that you are doing a fantastic job with your child. You are a wonderful parent. You are a wonderful mom. And you just don't even take that in. You don't even take that energy in.
Whenever we see another child having any sort of meltdown, my husband and I actually feel slightly validated. We're like, yes, it's not just us. Like we give like the smile. We're like, yep, you'll get through it, to the other parent. But
every single time I see one at Trader Joe's, I see somebody at Target, I go so far as ever, and I've been doing this for years, before Big Little Feelings, just normal old me. And I'll go up to that mom and I'll be like, honey, you're doing great. Like, you're doing amazing. You're being really calm right now. Because most of the time, the mom is actually just sitting there. She looks exhausted, or the dad, whoever it is, but they're just sitting there and this is happening, and they're, and so it feels great to just, go up to that person and say they're doing a great job, because we're all in it. We're all
not only that. I look at, as a child therapist, when I see kids melting down like that, I honestly have an applause in my head. Yes, they're releasing their feelings. That's so healthy, because so many of us growing up didn't have a space to safely release and really be honest and authentic. And what happens? We end up kind of having these areas of shame, or we learn to detach from our feelings and kind of shove them deep, deep down. So when I see kids melting, I'm like, yes, let it out. Yes.
I like hearing that, because, my kids have tantrums, more my son than anything. And I'm feeling a little better knowing that it's better to let them out than repress them. I grew up doing theater, so I always found a way to let my feelings out. I actually say that kind of saved my sanity because there was always a song or something just to kind of express it through. But not every person has that outlet. So thank you for validating me a little that kids should let their feelings out. But let's also talk about that trajectory of natural child development. Like, what are the signs that there could be an underlying sensory or self-regulation issue? Like, where do we say, all right, this child really should have outgrown these tantrums?
Yeah, so think of every kid as having kind of like a limit of how much overwhelm or discomfort or stress, or when we're talking sensory, some sort of sensation that they can handle well before it becomes just too much. And when it becomes too much, we don't handle it, quote unquote, well. We maybe go into some destructive coping kind of patterns there. When we're talking about sensory, we're really talking about a kid feeling bothered by noises or lights or clothing textures for some. And it's important to remember that each body that we live in is so unique, and we process things as comfortable or uncomfortable differently. Mm-hmm. So the other idea that you're talking about is more like self-regulation and what's healthy or what's normal or typical there. Now, we can't really expect a toddler or even young kids to be able to self-regulate all the time. And it's our job to help them build those skills over time. But, that's kind of the balance we want to strike is how can we help them understand what they feel and learn ways to handle it in healthy, constructive ways. But if you ever feel like it's too much, or you notice that maybe your child's sensory sensitivities seem to be really impacting them, go to your pediatrician, check in. It's always a great idea. And I always want to empower every parent to listen to their mommy or daddy intuition and follow that. So, never hesitate if you feel like something might be of concern or it's maybe too much. Check in with your pediatrician. They're a great resource, or a child therapist too.
All right. So is there an age typically that we can expect tantrums to taper off?
Well, let me start out by saying that your brain finishes developing around 25.
I was waiting to hear like 8 or 9 or 10. Oh,
you're like, tomorrow. Congratulations.
No, 25
tomorrow.
Yeah, we have pretty two like unique explosion periods. One is when they're 0 to 4-ish is when their brains are just exploding with growth. And then again, when they're teenagers. So, it really depends. In terms of tantrums themselves, we tend to see a little bit of a drop off around 5 or so is a bit of a pivot where they are able to internalize coping skills more. And again, always best taught in a calm moment after the storm. Yeah, but then it depends. And they're all just developing. And again, that kind of like, I don't want to say regression, but it's a huge change that happens in adolescence too.
Huh. Okay. I'm just taking that in.
Oh no.
So all of our listeners that are dealing with it, like a 2 or 3-year-old, I bet they're shaking their head saying, oh my God, I'm going to be dealing this in another 10 years. Okay.
But here's the cool thing about toddlerhood is that if you're implementing these tools and you're seeing them and you're doing your best to hold consistent boundaries, you are giving them an amazing foundation for moving forward. And remember, big feelings are healthy. It's part of life. It's so healthy to feel angry or to feel sad and let yourself cry. That's really the goal.
Okay.
And the nonstop temper tantrums, quote unquote, as we would like to traditionally think of it, like Deena said, it really does start to drop at, let's say, 5. I mean, and it's going to be different for everyone. So even in my own home, she's approaching 4. And like I said, she can do the angry chalk or things like that. Does she still have tantrums? Yes, she does. But it was not, it was not like what it was when it was 2, when there's no coping at all, when, it's just all day long, and there's really not a whole lot you can do. They can't describe anything. Even when they're closer to 4 and 5, at least at bedtime, you can talk about things and be like, gosh, it's really hard being a big sister or brother that probably made you feel really mad earlier about the 1 or 2 incidences they had that day, right? Whereas at 2, it's like 100 incidences, and there's no coming back from it. So it's not to say it's going, if you have a 2-year-old, it's going to be like this forever. That's not the case. It's just that, at certain points, they're still probably going to have a tantrum or a meltdown or 2 throughout, early childhood.
That makes sense. And also when they're so little, they don't have the words to describe what they're feeling. It's just kind of like, it makes me think of my cat. Like she just sits there meowing and I'm like, I don't know what you want. So
exactly. It's exactly like that. But the cat is screaming at you. The cat is yelling.
The cat is yelling. I'm like, everyone's just yelling today. Yeah. So before we start to wrap up, I feel like you guys are just such a wealth of knowledge. Is there anything else about tantrums I didn't ask that you feel like it's really important to hit? Not hit people, like to hit the point. Not sorry. Sorry.
I think that we've sort of covered it, but I think overall, just know that like your toddler's tantrum says nothing about you as a parent. We just want you to know that if your kid is melting down 100 times a day or just 1 time a day or anything like that, it's not because you're a bad parent. It's nothing that you did. That this is part of healthy development. It actually, congratulations, means that your toddler's brain is super healthy. And that said, we're here to help and we have strategies to help you, but just don't, I really want to reiterate, and Deena too, that it's not you and it's nothing you did.
I think that's important. I think parents need to hear that because I feel like there is a lot of pressure on parents to have like the quote unquote perfect child. And I literally laughed when you said, congratulations, your child's brain is healthy. I'm like, oh, that's such a nice way of looking at that. Like, I really appreciate that positive spin on that.
Exactly. And I mean, I think another takeaway for parents too is just to be super compassionate on your hard days. Like forgive yourself if you've slipped up, you didn't show up as your highest self would in a moment because you're exhausted, you're at the end of your rope. It's been just a day. We always think of it as kind of like the 80-20 rule, which is like 80% of the time we want to be holding consistent routines and saying all the things and holding space for the feelings, and 20%
eating organic food or great food and real meals and all those ideal things.
And then there's the other 20%.
Remember that
20%. Yep.
I like that.
Cereal and survival.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, if both of you can give one tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer to new and expectant parents, we'll be right back.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo, and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, so it can be anything about tantrums. It can be anything about pregnancy, parenthood, anything that you want to share. Who wants to go first?
About parenting in general, you just, I don't know how to say this in a way that's not you just have to kind of go with the flow sometimes, and I say that in a very good way, that we cannot control our kids. And so it's best to just kind of, have your strategies in place, do your research, know what you can do. And then after that, you kind of have to like put your hands up and let your kid be who your kid is going to be, you know?
I do. In fact, I taught my yoga class yesterday was about that whole idea that we set up the best options. We try to balance the body, the pelvis, the uterus. We try to give, stack the deck. And then that baby's going to come out how that baby comes out. So we do our best and then we surrender to the path that happens. I love that you said that. Yes. Yes.
And so it's like, maybe you have a higher energy kid or a lower energy kid or the kid that runs around constantly at story time and can't even, sit still for a book, which is one of my kids. Or you have the other kid who's like the other one of my kids that's laying on the ground and sleeping at story time. You can do all the right things and have all the right tools and all the right things in place. And that's good. That's totally what we want because then we're prepared. And then your kid is now able to flourish and be themselves exactly as they were meant to be.
Oh, I love that. Okay. And I think it's Deena's next.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest takeaways, and this really comes from my work just as a child therapist in general, is just to remember that feelings are information for all of us. And I'm talking both, from what we're teaching our kids from an early age on how to name the feelings and handle them and manage them, but also as adults that it's all just information. And the more we can kind of receive that, the less reactive we are in a given moment. So that's really like a big message is just all feelings are okay. And we hold boundaries when needed too for like safety areas.
Oh, I like that. Where can people find your work? I know you have an online course. You've got Instagram. You've got a lot out there. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so the best place to find us is our Instagram. That's where we post all of our free tips, daily tips. All of our stories are usually big, helpful things for the day. So that's at Big Little Feelings. And then through there, you can go to our website, which is biglittlefeelings.com. And that's where you can find our toddler course. So it's called Winning the Toddler Stage. And it talks all about all the things we talked about. It has all the strategies on preventing tantrums in the first place, what to do in the moment of a tantrum. And then we throw everything your way. Bath time, bedtime, siblings, sharing. We break it all down.
Yeah, because you just hit all the major points. It's like bath time. It's like they'd never heard of water before and that they'd have to get in it. It's just like...
Yeah. They're like, wait, what? You're like, we've done this every day.
Or putting their shoes on.
Yeah, we have that too. So there's a section of getting out the door. We truly, honestly put every teeny tiny little barrier and put strategies for them. So
I just want you to be able to click through and find your solution right away.
I love it. It sounds like a really, really important resource for new parents. In fact, I wish I had that because there's many times I would just shake my head. I'm like, what do you mean? Shoes go on every day. And like if I had
every day.
And if I had some sort of script or resource, that would have been extremely helpful. Well, I want to thank you both for giving me some time to go over this. I really feel our community, who is made up of a lot of new and expectant parents, can really thrive with what you offered. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy your day. Take care.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.